Welcome to another episode of the Release Day Series podcast. Joining me today is Brent Jensen, and Brent is not a musician, but he is absolutely involved in the music world. He is an author of No Sleep Till Sudbury, author of Leftover People, and All My Favorite People Are Broken. The man has written 3 books. He's got a podcast called No Sleep Till Sudbury, and it's such a fantastic podcast, and I wanted to speak with him today to get his perspective on releasing a podcast and what goes into that. So that is why he is on the show today. Brent, thanks so much for agreeing to do this with me and talking about your show.
Well, thanks for having me, Alex. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah. So just want to kind of dive into who you are and, you know, what you've done, where you've come from to get into not only being an author, but a public speaker as well, and a podcaster. And we've chatted a little bit about this, and you've kind of approached it from a position of a lot of musicians, I think about getting into the music world, where they want to do it, but they don't go all in. You went all in on something that you love. You left the corporate world and started doing what you love to do. Can you just elaborate further on that?
I did. Yeah, I can. This is back in, I think, 2017. So I'd written the first book, No Sleep Till Sudbury, in 2012, and just literally kind of crossed my fingers and braced for impact. I didn't know what was going to happen. I put the book out there, and fortunately it did fairly well. And so I wrote a couple of books after that, but all the while I was working. And so in 2017, I thought, I think I can kind of make a go of this. And the third book, All My Favorite People Are Broken, was a book about, how music makes you feel. So we talked about, my buddy and I talked about the songs that kind of make your skin vibrate. That tagline would be, devised later, but the podcast was born of that book. And I thought, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can make a go of it. And so I believe it was March 2017, I started the podcast, and it's been going well ever since. And I did, it's kind of a scary premise. It's almost like, selling the magic beans for the cow to a degree, because you don't know what's going to happen. But it's worked out so far, and I have no complaints. I'm a lucky guy.
Absolutely. I love it. How long has it been going now? You've had it going for a few years.
No Sleep Till Sudbury turned 4 this month, actually. Yeah, 2017 was when the first episodes were created. So, yeah, man. The 200th episode actually just was completed last night.
Yeah, that's incredible. Absolutely. Yeah. And so, why did you get into the podcasting world? What was it that stood out to you that this was an avenue and a platform that you wanted to get involved with?
Well, it was a natural extension, I was saying earlier, from All My Favorite People Are Broken. When that book came out, it was, more detailed. It was a book about a friend of mine and I, and we went out into Banff, into the mountains, because we'd been talking for decades about the music that makes you feel the way that it does. And so we said, let's just isolate ourselves and really sit down and kind of, get into the how and the why of this, and make a list of all your songs. I'll make a list of all mine. And we went one for one. We literally went to this resort in Banff, out in the middle of nowhere. We had an iPod, and we had 2 iPods, one each, and we had a sound dock. And we plugged in and took the iPod out. And we went back like one for one, and played the song. And as the song was playing, we talked about what it meant to us and why, the stories behind it. And all kinds of crazy things started to happen. There was this psychological kind of subtext at one point where I was thinking, like, music tells you so much about where you've been in your life and why you were there. And he was, my buddy was talking about things like Aretha Franklin and Clive Davis, and coming at me with that stuff, Springsteen. And I had grown up in a small town. I was a metal kid. And so, I was coming back with, Iron Maiden and Metallica and that sort of thing. I thought, like, what does this say about, the music that I gravitated to at certain points in my life? And what is he thinking about me? And what am I thinking about him? So all these things started to swirl in my head, and the book came of that. And so when the book came out, somebody said to me, you should make a business out of this because it's really cool. It's a cool concept. And I said, I don't know, I don't know if I can do that, but a podcast would be cool because I could have like little mini experiences like that. So maybe, someone comes in and talks about songs for half an hour, 5 songs to make their skin vibrate, whatever. And the podcast was born of that idea. So it was like a natural evolution. From All My Favorite People Are Broken. And then you mentioned the speaking experiences. Speaking kind of evolved from that. So going out to conferences and events and talking about things like music's impact on consumer behavior, or how you can use music to be a better speech writer. I did one of those in Washington. So there's all kinds of stuff that you can do, and I'm still working on things. So yeah.
So the idea and the brand is sort of taking you all over the place. This everything that sort of extended from this retreat to with your friend to just determine how the music made you feel.
I feel like that started back before 2012 and before the first book, just because I'd always kind of made this consideration about the very significant emotional investment that I'd made to music as a kid. And I thought that there's something there. So music's power to elicit an emotional response, and how you can use that to form meaningful connections with people, and how you can learn from that and apply those things to your life. It's a powerful concept when you really think about it. There's so much to it.
Yeah, it definitely is. And when you started a podcast, this wasn't like 2020 when everybody decided to start a podcast. You started this back when it was a little bit of a rare thing to do, or it was a little bit new to the industry, was it not?
It was new-ish. I remember a really good friend of mine actually said to me around probably 2013, you should start a podcast. And I didn't know what a podcast was. I'd heard the word, and it was kind of a buzzword that people were talking about. I didn't know what it was. I looked into it. I kind of put it off. And then I saw him a couple of years later again. And he said, listen, man, you got to do this podcast. And I said, yeah, it kind of works with the most recent book. And I went on YouTube and just kind of figured out, how to put one together in terms of editing and platforms and all that stuff, and figured it out. And again, just like the books, you cross your fingers and you kind of brace for impact and see what happens. It takes a little bit of nerve to do that. And you have to thicken your skin, quite a bit, but you don't know until you try, right? So
yeah, exactly. That's how I felt about this podcast, and at least getting it off the ground. It was like, let's do it. I found something that interested me, and it's awesome. You had that motivation from your friend there to get it going. So it's just and it's a great opportunity, right? Just to be able to talk with people. And I think the way that you've set yours up, there's so much that you learn. I'm sure you yourself, you know so much about music, and I get that every time I listen to an episode of yours, and I feel like I'm always trying to catch up, and then I listen to people like yourself talking about it, and on one of your most recent episodes with Ellis Meek, the amount of knowledge that he has just about music, and I'm like, what do I even know? Like, it's just, and that's why I love doing this. But there's just so much knowledge that you can take away, especially from the people that you talk to.
Yeah, well, that's a treat for me. I mean, that's a fringe benefit of doing the show for me, because I learned so much. I mean, over the 200 episodes I've done, people have come in with every kind of music that you can imagine across every genre. Stuff I didn't even know existed. Yeah. I had Safwan Javed on the show from Wide Mouth Mason, the drummer, and he brought in songs that I can't classify them in terms of genre. Like, I don't even know, where they come from or what they are, but it's fascinating to learn about that stuff. And, maybe something not as crazy, somebody might bring in maybe an old Sinatra tune or something like that. And, you go through Spotify and listen to it and think, wow, this is fantastic. I've learned, I found so many great songs in doing that. And I've learned a lot about music too, as a result.
Yeah.
Okay.
So why did you go with No Sleep Till Sudbury? That was your first book. What was it about using that name for the podcast that you thought this is what I'm going to move forward to? This is going to be the brand name.
I don't know. I don't, not a lot of thought went into it. I just kind of, I just thought I want to tie it to the book somehow. and I didn't really want to have another name, you know, in addition to the books. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought that, you know, maybe 10 people, I'd be lucky if 10 or 20 people listened. And so it really was a passion project that maybe could help out with book sales, I thought.
Cool.
And so I thought I'll just call it after my first book, and, you know, we'll go from there, or name it after my first book. But yeah, not a lot of thought went into it. And it's funny because I was thinking as I was putting the 200th episode together about the tagline, the music that makes your skin vibrate. That really just kind of popped into my head out of nowhere. I didn't get that anywhere. I didn't kind of, you know, think about it to any great length. It just kind of, you know, when you get those tingles, when you listen to music, it kind of feels like your skin's vibrating. And I can't believe that nobody had used that before, but
yeah.
There it is.
I feel like that's when you know it's a good idea, when those things just pop into your head, or, you know, when you feel good about it, it just kind of comes out of nowhere. You know, those are the ideas, the ones that you run with that work for you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the show and what you do. You have guests on, and you generally give them an opportunity to pick 5 songs, and that's about the music that makes their skin vibrate. You've had Rick Emmett from Triumph. You've had some great episodes with him, the Christmas episodes, where especially from this year, going over and dissecting the songs. You guys have picked so many that
so much fun.
Yeah, you've dissected, and Rick is an incredible music teacher, and he basically broke down the songs that you guys had chosen, and then you referenced a music psychology book. This is Your Brain on Music, and it's just incredible the way that you were able to bring those other facets to the show with him. And you've had Erica Ehm and Christopher Ward, former MuchMusic DJs, and Kathy Valentine of the Go-Go's. So how do you prep for these? Do you have a process that you go through aside from sending them pick 5 songs, or, you know, what do you do to kind of get prepared before the recording of each of these episodes?
So I've got usually just like a little 1-pager, right, with all the 5 songs. So what I'll do is I'll say, you know, send the songs over. They send me the songs, I'll prepare them just so that we can have them. And then we'll talk about like a little intro, and I'll think like, you know, it whatever's germane, right? If it's a new book the person's coming out with, or if there's a new record, or if it's just like an interesting fact that I think would be cool to talk about with them. You know, I'll have that just like a little kind of tidy 1-pager, but sometimes, Alex, look, there's no prep. So I'll get a call from someone saying, hey, Murray McLaughlin is in town for a day, and do you want to talk to him? And I'll say, yeah, sure. Can you send songs? No. And so you just wing it, right?
Yeah.
I got a cell phone once for somebody, and I called it, and that was a show. I can't remember.
That's how it went down. Yeah.
It was Gordy Johnson from Big Sugar.
Cool.
And then some people just dropped by the show, like Kevin Comeau from Crownlands called me and said, hey, I'm in the neighborhood. Do you want to chat about music? And I said, yeah. He came in, he had no songs. So we just talked about what he'd listened to on the way over.
Amazing.
And that was the show. So
yeah, because you've recorded this. You've had a location that you used to record this in. Is it your house, or do you have sort of like a studio space that you rented or used?
It was the Spoke Club in Toronto on King Street. Yeah. So they had like a little screening room there that I used to use, which is really great. But they have since closed down. So, and obviously with COVID, you know, I do everything here now in the studio at home. So right over there is where all the magic happens.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. How was that transition from doing everything live? Because when I first started listening to your show, I loved, and I still love it, but you could tell the interaction is different, which is why I loved your Steam Whistle series, when you were able to actually have people in person again, because there is such a different atmosphere, there's such a different vibe, if you will, that comes from an in-person interaction, right? Obviously. And that's what I've loved about it before, and that's what got me hooked. And then I was so happy when you did the Steam Whistle. So what was that transition like for you from in person to doing everything virtual because of the pandemic?
It was tough. I mean, I'd had experience doing phoners with people because, you know, not everybody can turn up in Toronto. So, but it was never my preference just because of sound quality, but also chemistry, right? sitting in a room with people. And at Spoke Club, it was cool because the screening room, you could fool around with the lights and stuff. So I'd always turn the lights down really dim.
Nice.
And people would come in, and Tara Sloan came in and said, like, what are you doing here? Like, you know, just,
Awesome.
I don't know if I completely trust you.
Yeah.
But like, it's just like a really mellow kind of vibe. And
Yeah.
so it's funny because when people came into that room, it was kind of dark and they were like, maybe a little bit suspicious. I didn't know.
Right.
And then by the end, you know, they're kind of in their chairs like, oh, wow, do you want to do 5 more? You know,
yeah, that's great.
So
well, then and you've had some people play songs for you live there as well. That must have been just awesome as well. Like they bring an instrument in, and you know, did you not have Julian Taylor play a solo show for you? Like, come on.
You know what he did? He did. See, that this is, I think about these things and like I'm the luckiest guy in the world in terms of these experiences. So he was in a band called Staggered Crossing in the late 90s. And he had a song called Further Again that I loved. Now this is, you know, almost 3 decades ago, right? And then he, you know, became Julian Taylor, R&B guy, and it's fantastic music now. But, you know, I thought back to Staggered Crossing and I thought like, it's quite different because it's more rock infused. But, you know, I'd mentioned to him that I love that song at the beginning, at the top of the show, like before we started recording. And he had his acoustic guitar, and he was probably going to do like his new single from his Avalanche record that was out at the time. And so it comes time for him to do his number, and he starts playing Further Again on the acoustic guitar. And it was a complete surprise to me. And I said, are you shitting me right now? Are you kidding? And he goes, no, man, hang on. I'll see if I can remember it. And he's such a chill guy.
That's awesome.
And so he works it all out, and we're recording, and then he plays it.
Yeah.
And it was just like one of those life enriching moments, you know. I just thought like, you're so amazing. That's so yes, I really miss those times where people would come in. Barney Bentall did a tune, Something to Live For live, and it just lit me up. Like stuff like that. Oh man, I look forward to, you know, to getting back to that.
Yeah.
I miss it.
Well, you and I share a favorite song off of that Avalanche album, which is Sweeter. I'm a big fan of that tune because that's my favorite song on that album. And yeah, from Julian Taylor, it is, man, everything he's done. And congratulations to him on 2 Juno nominations.
Yes.
Finally, the only 2 he's ever had any nomination before, which blew me away. Yeah. So, yeah, that's great. So you've been doing this, man. This is just like for how long you've been doing this. It's wild. Because there's a lot that you've put into this, and it's like the music industry. It's what a lot of artists need to think about as well, is it doesn't just happen overnight. A lot of these things, you know, they don't just happen. Like how long, I'm not sure, maybe your connections beforehand, but you know, when someone's deciding just to send you somebody's cell phone number, you know, they've got to have trust in the process. They got to have trust in you. They got to have trust in the brand and the name. How long did it take to build that, or did you find that it took to build that?
See, I was lucky enough that through the book, I had some contacts that landed me some bigger names right off the bat. So Phil Collen from Def Leppard was in I think it was episode 27 or 29. So that earns credibility. Mm-hmm. Johnny French from Twisted Sister was just before him or just after. So that's another one. Yeah. So, you know, when you can say these people have been on the show. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's almost like, you know, people are very cautious, right? So what's your show about? It's this. Oh, it's a good idea. So who's been on the show? This person, that. Oh, okay. Well, if it's good enough for Ron Mclean, then I can do it too. So it goes from there. And then, but you know, until you do that, people are very kind of reluctant to take part. But I found that, you know, after I was lucky, and now, I mean, you know, I've had so many great guests that I feel like, you know, the sky's the limit. Yeah.
And was that, were you reaching out initially? Were you reaching out to Phil Collen and saying, hey, can you be part of this? And then after that, it's just everybody started to come to you?
Phil Collen came to me through a friend. But then what you find is these people kind of will recommend. So they'll say, oh, this is so fun. You know who would love to do this is this person. Right. So like Johnny French recommended Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater. And that's how he came on the show. Yeah, it's crazy. Wild. Right? And it just goes from there. Blair Packham, Rick Emmett, Stephen Stanley, like they all said, hey, you should talk to this person, or this woman would love to do the show. And
So
it just
cool.
kind of, again, luck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I want to get into a little bit of the production side, getting towards the release. What is your timeline like for an episode? Are you recording? Do you have a bunch of them in the can, or are you recording week to week? What does that look like in your preparedness for actually getting to the release day of your podcast?
When I'm able, I like to do, multiple episodes and have them in the can so that I can work on other things, because a typical timeline per episode is between 6 and 10 hours of start to finish, right? So like wrangling guests, scheduling, editing, posting, all that stuff, probably between 6 and 10 hours. So it's a while. There have been times when I've had my back to the wall where I've not had an episode for the following week, and I just managed to kind of pull the rabbit out of my hat somehow. I don't know how I do that, but knock on wood, hopefully I don't get caught.
Yeah.
I record them in bunches sometimes.
Okay.
And then I'll just set days aside to go through. The editing, as you know, is the longest process.
Totally.
Right? That's really a challenge sometimes, especially if you've got, if someone's not, COVID is tough because sometimes you'll talk to somebody on a bad cell phone line. And you have to cut parts out of the show that you don't want to cut out because they're just completely illegible.
Yeah. Wind's blowing, or the connection is cutting out a little too much. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and one thing I didn't touch on when we were just talking specifically about your podcast is you do have another type of episode, which is your story episodes, which I absolutely love those. Those stand out to me because I learned so much from them, and you've done episodes that go through the decades. And I suppose being able to put something like that together could, they might save you if you don't have a guest, but that still takes a ton of work to make sure you've done the proper research.
It does.
Yeah.
So, and thank you. I appreciate that feedback because, I wasn't sure the guest or the show was kind of predicated on the fact that there would be guests.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, I'm going to try this and see how it goes. And I put one out there again, crossed my fingers, and, people seem to like it. So then I did a couple more. And you're right. When you have your back to the wall, sometimes you can just say, okay, well, maybe I should talk about Jim Morrison's death. That's kind of fascinating, or these conspiracy theories, right? And I just kind of dig around and kind of learn up on it.
Yeah.
I love doing those things, but it still is a lot of work. I mean, like I'll start, everything's broken out in terms of weeks. So I load up on Monday. On Tuesday, I'll start thinking about what the next episode is. And then if it's one of those that I have to write up, that's probably about 5 or 6 pages of content that you've got to come up with, right? And then you have to record it, you have to edit yourself and all that stuff. So yeah, it's
man, I have such a I spend so long just crafting like my opening 30 seconds to get into the episode. And when you go back and listen to your story episodes, and I was even like listening to the one on Phil Spector, like just the chronology that you needed to have on that in order to take people from beginning to end through the craziness that is Phil Spector in general, and then also when you talk about the myths, the mythology on some album covers, just how you need to be able to take, I know you're a writer, but it's a lot that you've got to unpack in order to get those points across. And, you as a creator, I know you have to feel okay with it as well. And if you don't feel good with it, or you feel like you're not telling the proper story, you're not going to put it out. So it's got to be a ton that a ton of work that goes into something like that.
Yeah, that's happened too. So sometimes it's not there, and I don't want to put it out. And I've got stuff like that, kicking around where I finished it and I thought, no, it's just not up to snuff. Like I don't want to put that out there.
Are those one writing sessions? Are you writing them over multiple days, or do you try and be as in the moment as possible in getting that story out?
No, I'll sit down and, like I said, that probably putting one of those together, that writing the script for those, probably about 6 or 7 hours of time.
Yeah.
Because you have to refine it. So you take all the bits and then you turn it into a kind of a feasible story, as it were. And then all the editing and it's kind of molding and finessing.
Yeah. And so now, do you have a template in multiple forms at all? Do you have sort of, I know that sometimes they come together and you haven't had any kind of preparation, but do you have a bit of a template when thinking about producing the show and then taking it into editing? So I guess two-part process or two-part question. There's the preparing for the show process, and then there's the editing process. Do you have anything prepped already to make your life easier when it comes to production side than getting into post-production side?
No. When I'm speaking with guests, what I'll try and make sure that the sound is as good as it can be, because that saves a little bit of time on the editing side. But for the other episodes, no, I just have to, make sure everything is quiet and do my best to kind of make it easiest for myself. But there are times, Alex, when like I'm reading this stuff and I don't read it. I try to make it kind of conversational, and I can't do it. And it sounds terrible. And I keep, there's like bloopers aplenty, where, and then I'll swear. And then I've got this like reams of stuff where I'm just like, God damn it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of, Graham and I, we do like the post show for this episode, and it should take 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And 25 to 30 minutes later, because one, he and I, we just have fun with it, but it's just, that's just it. And I'm the one that screws up the most. Like I try and every time be good going into it, and there's something. Maybe I need to stop drinking wine or having a little nip of whiskey before we record to loosen up. That's probably why I get so tongue tied. But no, I totally know that process. And do you record directly to a software and then edit from there? What is a little bit of that process for you? Do you have set up like a recording software?
So I use a Zoom H4n interface. So
nice.
That's
what I got.
It's I swear by that thing. Like it is fantastic. It's supported me the entire way, and I love it. It's a workhorse, and it's so small, right? It's like the size of your hand.
Oh yeah.
So into that, from there I go into Audacity.
Okay, cool.
On the computer, and that's the editing software I use, which is also great. And that's it. And then Libsyn is my platform. And Libsyn, I feed the MP3, the finished MP3 into Libsyn, and they distribute it to everyone who needs to get it. So everybody from Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, Amazon now, and send it everywhere for me, which is a really great thing.
And last thing, just about the production side, your guests, obviously now, before it was in person, you could record direct to the H4n with another mic, or you're taking from Zoom. Cell phone, I'm too afraid to even think about recording from a cell phone, but I know you've had some of those episodes. How has that worked for you? So
what I do is I've got like a little kind of, I don't know what you call it, but it fits into your cell phone, and then it's a switcher. It goes into the Zoom H4n. What I will do, is I'll be in the first channel, and the phone is in the other channel, which is pretty cool. So I mean, it's not perfect, but the sound is not great, and sometimes people complain about the fact that it's not like rich and textured.
Yeah,
it's a bloody cell phone call. Like, what do you want?
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, like, you listen to radio shows and people call in from, Alabama, and you're not going to get the quality.
It's not great.
So I try, but not always there.
So you've done all this work. Now you got to put it out. What are you thinking marketing wise for each episode? Is there something behind each episode? Because you have some great write-ups and always some points that you want to hit on. How do you translate that into like promotional copy when promoting and marketing each episode?
I try to touch on the points of the interview that are the most kind of intriguing to people, or what I think will be the most intriguing. And it's cool. Like it's easy because I'll talk to Jeffrey Lee Campbell, Sting's guitar player, right? And he touches on, the story about him being in Berlin with Sting or something like that. So I'll reference little things like that. I'll say, our chat included, whatever. And I'll try to make like little zingers so people read them and go, ooh, that would be kind of cool. What is that? So there's always that kind of in the back of my mind. I'm always thinking like, if I read that, I would want to click through and listen and try to find out what the deal is with that. So I do that a lot. I'm very focused on that. But I was also thinking about that because on Monday mornings is when I load these episodes, and sometimes I'm just like not feeling it, right? Mm-hmm. And I just don't have the jam, and I'm like, I just want to say, just listen to the episode.
yeah. Well, you put some you put some great photos together as well. Especially when you talk to bands from artists from Honeymoon Suite and Spoons, and even with Erica Ehm, like you have great images to go along with this as well, because it kind of gets to the heart of it as well, right? I think those are intriguing enough as it is. I think that especially with the type of people you talk to, their listeners, when they see those photos, not only does it make them think, oh yeah, I love that, but it also takes them back to the moment in time when they were listening to it. So that sense of nostalgia, I think, as well, with the accompanying images.
Sometimes that can be tricky, and I try to use photos that will be super captivating.
Yeah,
obviously, right, and that takes a little bit of work as well. But then, for example, someone like Erica Ehm, does she want me to use something from 1987?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes artists don't want you to do that.
Yeah.
So I often will check with them and say, like, is it okay if I use this as promo and stuff like that? And
man, I get terrified sometimes about that. Even when it comes to me writing my copy, I don't want to. Sometimes I'm thinking, is the artist going to be like, why am I using that as the headline? Or am I trying to sell too much of myself off of one point, that really doesn't connect with them, but it's a good headline. I'm not a tabloid writer. I want to tell them about the messaging the things that we're talking about. But I know that, hey, maybe if I just use this word, then everybody would be like, whoa, I got to read that. But I can't bring myself to do that yet. I'll see if that changes. But same thing with even just thinking about either images or my intros that I do. It's like there's a little bit of that self-consciousness that maybe the artist is gonna say, hey, well, that's not right, or hey, please don't use that image, or I don't like this part of the podcast or this episode. Do you send these things to them? Do you even send the episode beforehand? You just post it? Yeah.
No, I just post
Don't
it.
give them the chance.
Well, but you know what? That's part of the interview process, right? People are not as precious as maybe they could be. I've had a couple of people come back on me and say, I don't like that was in there. Can you take that out? That happened to me once. I actually had to go back, and this person wasn't even a popular person. I mean, she was a musician that you might go see, at the Dakota Tavern downtown. But she made a comment that she asked me to remove it, and so I had to take the episode down, delete it, and put the episode back up.
Yeah.
So sometimes that happens, but mostly people are pretty chill with it. They're pretty good.
Yeah, they're gonna say something, then that's what they mean to say.
That's part of the game. Right?
Yeah. Part of being an artist, being part and getting yourself involved in these types of interviews or these conversations with people.
Well, that's it. That's part of the bargain. I mean, I couldn't imagine, us doing this and then me saying, Alex, I didn't like the lighting. So, can you edit that part out, or, that part when I talked about this, can you take that out? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think that should be allowed, really.
Agreed. Yeah. So I'm going to stop sending artists the episodes beforehand. That's what I've been.
Do you do that?
I try to give it to them. Granted, I give them like a day. I send it to them on Tuesday before we release on Wednesday. I say, here's the episode. Hope you like it. And it kind of gives an opportunity to listen to it. And with the video series, I have done that. I've said, hey, here it is. Let me know if there's anything that you do or don't like. That's also part of my corporate world, like day job, that I think I've got to maybe get beyond and just be okay with putting out. But I'm always, I'm just overly conscious, I think, of how I things could be perceived. So I just want to make sure that it's okay, so that's all.
So Stephen Stanley was okay with his lighting and all of his.
Yeah, yeah. Stephen was fine. He was great. He was great.
Awesome.
That was after the 5th revision, but then he was great. That was and thank you, Brent. You set that one up for me, so thank you so much. That was episode 1 of the podcast because I just loved that conversation so much.
He was thrilled. He's an awesome guy, right? He's just one of us.
Do you ever do paid advertising? Do you ever put some money behind marketing any episode? Don't need to at this point. Yeah.
No, well, I just feel like I think I could do that, but I don't want to break up the flow of the episode. So you'll often hear what's called mid-roll advertising. Right. So it'll be like we'll be back after this ad from Canadian Tire or whatever in the middle of the podcast. And I just thought, I don't know, it just kind of chops the podcast up and
drives me nuts.
Nobody wants to hear that. Yeah. So Pride Pickups is my sponsor right now. They're at the beginning, but it's not like the scripted thing. I say they're great, because they are. And that's it. It's steam whistle. Great. Yeah. Love them. That's it. That's as far as it goes. It's not like a kind of a formal commercial, So
yeah, that's cool. That's good. And for that sponsorship, I mean, that's kind of something I want to try and start considering. Obviously, I think sponsors want to see numbers. We kind of laugh at that about people wanting to come on the show and they want to know numbers. But at the same time, if you're looking for any kind of financial backing or support sponsorship wise, I think they're going to want to know what kind of numbers you're bringing in to make sure it makes sense.
Oh, Alex, I've played those games for 4 years, and I decided to join Patreon, and I'm going to be launching that. I'm going to launch it next week.
Oh, amazing! So what are you going to be providing through Patreon?
The big exclusive.
Yeah.
All the stuff that I talked about earlier, actually, all the behind the scenes kind of flubs and outtakes.
Yeah.
Unreleased episodes.
Awesome.
So Big Sugar Gordy Johnson was actually on the show. He called me from his car, but the show was only 12 minutes long because he didn't have any songs and we just talked. So that's, one of these kind of unreleased bonus material things that I'll put on there.
That's cool.
Show notes, pictures. Somebody sent me their song list on one of those airplane sick bags.
Yeah.
And I have a picture of it. So, like cool behind the scenes stuff like that.
Yeah. And this is sort of the first time in this, this 4 years of having the show that you're technically asking for money.
Yes. Yeah. Well, just here's the thing. I mean, I'm at episode 200 now, and I've done this for 4 years, and there are costs associated with it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, your time for one, but also Libsyn costs money, equipment costs money. And so I thought, I don't want to have ads in the shows. I don't want to have formal commercials and mid rolls and end rolls and all that stuff. And so if people like the podcast and seemingly they do, that the data bears that out. If you want to support it, this is your opportunity to do that now. So I set up tiers. So if you want to support it at $2, $5, $10, whatever it is, here's what you get. I'll give them copies of my books, personally inscribe to them. All the bonus stuff. There's all kinds of goodies that you can get: t-shirts, merch, discounts. So so I just figured, I don't want to join a network because I don't want to compromise my content or lose intellectual property. I don't want to have commercials. So this is kind of the way to go.
You don't want to charge the artists?
That is awful. Have you heard about this? Seriously, that's a thing. Do you know that?
I know that you can pay for having your music reviewed or whatever, and that to me is like the reason. Like, you don't take stock in those places. You don't find music that way. But yeah,
somebody said to me once, you can charge people to be on your podcast, and I said that just flies in the face of everything that I want to do with this. That's bullshit. Can you imagine? You come on my show and, pay me $50 or whatever it is. Like, I would never do that. I did quite honestly, tinker once with the fact of like setting up kind of boutique podcast episodes for people as a service. But that was completely different. Like for No Sleep Till Sudbury, I would never charge guests to come on the show.
Last thought is, yeah, you have 200 episodes recorded. By the time this goes out, there will be over 200.
Mm-hmm.
Through all those episodes, is there
Hopefully.
anything that either way, you've gotten to 200, which is incredible. You're at 100, you're apparently considered a professional podcaster. Then you're taken seriously.
Is that right?
100, so you've crushed it. So
can I fill you in actually while we're on this topic? It's a very interesting fact. I just found this out. So, you read that stat all the time about increasing number of podcasts out there in the world, right? So the latest number used to be 800,000. The latest number is 1.4 million podcasts out there available for consumption. Okay.
Wow.
Now, I read recently that number is not completely accurate because 2/3 of that are podcasts that are not, active or have just been abandoned and don't have new episodes in the last 5 months or whatever it is. So the number is more like, 600,000.
Really? Yeah. It's just a lot of people don't even get past 2 episodes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think that people think that podcasts are these magic vessels that they can, kind of gain fame with and put them out there. And after episode 5, it's like, I just made, $80,000. Like it doesn't work that way at all.
Yeah.
Not even close.
For sure. That's why this is my last podcast. Yeah, no, that's crazy, man. And you're totally right. And it's funny. Like I was talking with Erica Alper, just trying to get some understanding. He's a big PR guy in Toronto, and
there's been a lot of guests actually.
Oh yeah. He's got an incredible roster of people. He said, just keep going. He said, so many people quit. Like the same thing you just said. He said, so many people quit on 2 to 3 episodes. Just keep it going, and but it is a lot of work. There's a lot of work. And look, this is taken, I do mixed media on the side. I edit videos. I know, that's kind of stuff. So maybe it's easier, but it's a lot of work, like just perspective. We release on Wednesday. I try to record every Thursday. Graham and I need to package the show. So we sit down generally Monday night and we record the intros and the outros. And in those outros, we have music that we pick. We try and touch on some news. And then we try and send people to our social media. And that all happens Monday night. And then I've got to have it edited and packaged to the edited interview. So I've got to edit the interview between, that time. And have it released on Tuesday at midnight. That's just my way that I do it. And then, I got social posts together. I gotta, tag people. You gotta tag the people. You gotta put all that stuff in there so that it is. And I think that's brilliant that you bring the Patreon into this because, it just gives you a little bit of extra motivation to sit down because you see that it really is having an impact on people.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens, right? I haven't announced it yet, so I don't know what the interest is going to be, if any. But I mean, I just feel like after 4 years, it's time to do it.
Yeah, so I love it, and you taking your time to get there. We're already talking about do we put a buy me a coffee button on the website? It's like we haven't even really established a fan base, but maybe if we just ask, I don't know. But I respect the hell out of that.
You might be surprised.
Yeah.
And I was looking on Patreon and the stuff that people are paying money for is just insane. So
I wanted to ask you about an episode. If there wasn't an episode or multiple episodes of No Sleep Till Sudbury that stand out to you the most, if there was a story, if there was something regarding a song that resonates with you, it's still you've held to this day from one of your guests. Do you have something that you've never forgotten?
I have a bunch that spring to mind immediately.
Yeah.
And, I'll preface the answer by saying that I've heard ridiculous stories of every stripe, like funny stories, offensive stories, inspiring stories. Zakk Wylde from Ozzy Osbourne's band, told me a story about what happens on the tour bus when Devo Whip It gets played. I couldn't use it. I can't.
No.
So I mean, there's stuff like that. people escaping from war-torn countries, listening to Pearl Jam Black for inspiration. That was another story I heard. Like, it's all kinds of crazy stuff. But the one story that I would tell you, I think, because it just completely, perfectly exemplifies what I had aspired to do when I started the show, is from Ron Mclean. So Ron Mclean, polished professional, right? Poised, super smart guy, comes in, and he's a normal Joe. He's a great man. He's very kind, very thoughtful. Tells me this story about Baker Street by Gerry Rafferty. The song just twists him up because he knows the story behind Gerry Rafferty. When he was in Steelers Wheel, he had alcohol issues, the whole thing, died an early death, right? So Ron said, when I'm driving and I hear Steelers Wheel, or not Steelers Wheel, Baker Street play on the radio, I sing along to it, and I think about what he's trying to tell me through those lyrics, because he's looking for acceptance, and he's hurting, and I can feel the pain. And he said, every time that song ends in the car, Brent, stupid, but I still do it. I pet the dashboard of the car. I pat it, and I say, "You done well, Gerry. You done well."
Wow.
And he started to choke up.
Yeah.
So he had to stop. He was emotional. And I just thought, wow, that's a very powerful consideration, to think that somebody as poised and professional as Ron Mclean, is willing to open up and tell me that story, but also the power that it has over him as a person. And it just, again, it exemplifies the idea that music has this power over us, but it also gives us an ability to kind of live so much more of a more enriched life, and that's the whole, it was so prescient, That's the story that comes to mind right away.
Yeah. I think it's pretty crazy, even in the last, I don't know, maybe 10 of your episodes, how there have been those songs that your artists have said, I cry when I hear this song. It's just, I don't stop and think about that often enough. I don't think, because I think that, and I don't know if that has an impact like it used to, the way the music was, the way that it used to connect, the way that it was made. There's definitely songs out there that can touch people and bring people to tears. But hearing that from so many of your guests, it just is a reminder, like you said, how powerful music is.
It happens a lot. And, oftentimes I'll edit those parts out because people, there have been times, and these names, I won't say them, but people have had to go to the bathroom because they're super emotional.
Yeah.
And that's a crazy thing, isn't it?
Well, I just wanted to tell you my favorite episode was with Steve Jones, author, speaker, and exec of Stingray. Yeah. That was the very first episode I listened to. Mm-hmm. And what I do with your episodes, what I did, I don't do it as often as I used to, but I would, anytime you would bring a song up, I would pause the podcast and then go listen to the song. Cool. So Steve mentions 5. I think he mentions 20 songs in the episode because of how many. Yeah. Morrissey's Suede Head. Is that what it is? Suede Head. Yeah. And so I stopped and listened to that. It's great. Bob Marley's Redemption Song. It talks about Marcus Garvey in Nova Scotia. That it's just incredible the what he knows about music. I mean, that's what he does. He knows about music, but and then he also talks about the Police and Howard and Roxanne, the opening piano note. It's Sting sitting on the piano and they left it in there, and it was Sting laughing. The Rolling Stones' "Give Me Shelter" about Mary Clayton and how she had the curlers in her hair. It's just that's my favorite episode, and I think there's so many episodes of this where like it just gives you that sense of how this music is really more than just songs and notes. It's these stories, and so much you can learn from that, and so much that you take away from the episodes on No Sleep Till Sudbury and your guests.
That's it. I've always, you can accelerate these connections with people through music. They open themselves up, and it's, somebody was on the show a long time ago, and after they were done, they kind of just exhaled and sat back in the chair and said, "This is like a psychological exercise.
Yeah.
Like, you should be charging me for this." See?
There you go. That's what it is. Therapy, Brent. Therapy.